The alert blared through the Imperial Command Center, bathing the cavernous room in pulsing crimson light. Fleet Admiral Draventorn's spine stiffened as he stared at the massive holographic display. 30 years of military service had never prepared him for what the sensors were reporting. "That's impossible," he whispered, leaning forward. "Run the calculations again." The Qualish tactical officer's six-fingered hands trembled as they swiped through the display. "Calculations verified, Admiral. The vessel is moving at approximately 17.3 times our theoretical maximum speed. No known propulsion system can achieve this." The unidentified craft had appeared at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system exactly 7 minutes ago. In that time, it had traversed what should have taken a top-tier Imperial vessel 3 days to cover. "Configuration?" Draven asked, his voice tight. "Unknown, sir. Material signature is also unknown. It doesn't match anything in our database." The tactical officer's facial ridges paled to an alarming shade of blue. "Sir, it's heading directly toward Proxima IV." Proxima IV, the Empire's most heavily populated colony world outside the solar system, with nearly 2 billion citizens. "Sound general quarters. Alert the planetary defense grid. I want every available ship in intercept position." Draven's orders cut through the rising tension like a plasma blade. "And get me a visual, for God's sake." The main view screen flickered and resolved into a star field. At its center, a sleek vessel of unfamiliar design glided through space. It wasn't particularly large, perhaps 400 meters in length, but its hull gleamed with an iridescent quality that seemed to bend light around it. No visible engines, no obvious weapons ports, no recognizable communications array. "Imperial hailing frequencies open, sir." Draven straightened his uniform. "This is Fleet Admiral Draventorn of the Galactic Imperial Fleet. Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted space at unlawful velocity. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded for inspection." Silence stretched across the command center as everyone waited. 10 seconds. 20. No response, Admiral. Draven's jaw tightened. "Target their propulsion systems." Warning shot across their bow. "Sir," the weapons officer's voice cracked. "The targeting system can't lock on. The vessel, it's like it's not fully there." The unidentified ship suddenly slowed, matching orbit with Proxima IV's moon. Then, as if sensing it was being observed, it rotated slightly, revealing what appeared to be a series of markings along its hull. "Magnify those markings." The image zoomed in, revealing a series of symbols unfamiliar to any Imperial language database. But beside them was something unmistakable, an image of what appeared to be an ancient flag, with stars and stripes. "Is that?" Draven's second-in-command reeve. "Human," Draven confirmed, his blood turning cold. "Pure human." The Empire had conquered Earth 3 centuries ago, reducing humanity to a client species, servants, manual laborers, and occasionally soldiers in the Imperial forces. But humans had never possessed technology like this. They had been primitive, barely achieving rudimentary space travel when the Empire arrived. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted. "We're receiving a transmission, audio only. Put it through." A calm, almost cheerful voice filled the command center. The language was an archaic form of English, but still understandable. "This is Captain Eleanor Wright of the Earth Expeditionary Vessel Prometheus. We come in peace and would like to open diplomatic relations. We've been away for a while, and it seems things have changed quite a bit since we left." A heavy silence blanketed the Imperial Command Center. Draven's mind raced through possibilities, none of them making sense. Earth had been a protectorate of the Empire for centuries. Its remaining population lived as a servile underclass, scattered across 100 worlds. "Secure channel," he ordered, and when the communications officer nodded, he continued. "Captain Wright, I'm afraid there must be some confusion. Earth has been part of the Galactic Empire for over 300 years. There is no Earth government capable of launching expeditionary vessels." A soft chuckle came through the speakers. "Yes, that's what your records would show. Admiral, we left Earth in 2057, long before your empire arrived. We've been traveling elsewhere." The date made no sense. The Empire had conquered Earth in 2089. "Impossible," Draven said. "No human vessel from that primitive era could have survived this long, let alone achieve the speeds we observed." "Perhaps we could meet in person," Captain Wright suggested. "I understand your confusion. We're prepared to send a small delegation to your vessel, or welcome you aboard ours." Draven muted the channel and turned to his security chief. Analysis. The Viridian officer's compound eyes flickered with nervous energy. The vessel remains impervious to our scans, sir. We detect no weapon signatures, but that means nothing if our sensors can't penetrate their hull. I advise extreme caution. Sir, the science officer interjected, if they truly departed Earth before our arrival, and have only just returned, the time dilation alone would— I'm aware of relativistic effects, Commander, Draven snapped, but no propulsion system can explain what we're seeing. He unmuted the channel. Captain Wright, I will lead a delegation to your vessel. Expect my shuttle in 30 minutes. The trip to the Prometheus was tense. Draven brought his most trusted officers, a security team of 4, his science officer, and xenolinguists specialized in human languages. As their shuttle approached, the true strangeness of the vessel became apparent. The hull seemed to shift slightly under direct observation, as though it existed partially in another dimension. They were greeted in a surprisingly conventional airlock by Captain Wright herself, a middle-aged human woman with close-cropped silver hair and startlingly bright eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform without excessive ornamentation or rank insignia. Admiral Tarn, welcome aboard the Prometheus. She extended her hand in the ancient human greeting custom. Draven hesitated before taking it. Captain Wright, your vessel has caused quite a stir in our command center. I imagine so. She smiled. Please follow me to our conference room. I believe we have much to discuss. The interior of the Prometheus was austere but comfortable. As they walked, Draven noticed other humans moving about efficiently, nodding respectfully as their captain passed. None showed the characteristics of subservience that 3 centuries of Imperial rule had instilled in the species. The conference room offered a stunning view of Proxima IV and the Imperial fleet that had gathered in response to their arrival. Around an oval table sat 3 more humans, 2 women and a man. My senior staff, Wright explained. Dr. Eliza Kingston, Chief Science Officer, Commander Marcus Phillips, Tactical Officer, and Dr. Amora Okafor, our Theoretical Physics Lead. Draven introduced his team with considerably less warmth. Let me be direct, Wright said once they were seated. We left Earth in 2057 on what was intended to be humanity's first interstellar mission to Alpha Centauri. During that journey, we encountered something unexpected, a spatial anomaly that our physicist, Dr. Okafor, determined was a naturally occurring wormhole. Dr. Okafor, a slender woman with dark skin and intense eyes, nodded. We had no choice but to investigate. The wormhole pulled us through to somewhere else. Another galaxy, we believe, though the stellar configurations matched nothing in our database. Spent decades there, Wright continued. We encountered civilizations far advanced beyond our own. They helped us understand technologies we couldn't have imagined, and eventually they helped us find our way home. Draven's mandibles clicked with skepticism. And what exactly do you want now that you've returned? Captain Wright's smile faded, her expression becoming sullen. We want to free our people, Admiral. All of them. Draven's hand moved instinctively to his sidearm, but Commander Phillips raised a placating hand. Please, Admiral. If we meant you harm, this conversation would be very different. His voice was calm, reasonable. We're outnumbered thousands to 1. We're here to talk. Reluctantly, Draven relaxed his posture. You speak of freeing your people as if they're enslaved. The Empire provides structure, security, and subjugation. Dr. Kingston interrupted, her voice sharp. We've spent weeks in stealth observation since our return. We've seen labor camps on Mars. Human children born into service contracts they can never fulfill. Cultural suppression programs on every colony world. Draven's face remained impassive. Necessary measures following attempted insurrections. The human species has a rebellious streak that required correction. Captain Wright leaned forward. Admiral, we're not here to judge history we weren't present for. We're here to change the future. The technology we've brought back can transform the Empire. All species within it. Transformation suggests upheaval, Draven countered. The Emperor values stability above all. Dr. Okafor tapped a small device on her wrist. A holographic display materialized above the table. Intricate mathematical equations that shifted and evolved. This is the theoretical framework for our propulsion system. What he'd call a phase drive. It doesn't move through space so much as alter the vessel's relationship with space-time itself. Despite himself, Draven was fascinated. The science officer beside him muttered in astonishment. "We can share this," Wright said, "along with medical technologies that could double the lifespan of every Imperial citizen, energy generation systems that require no resource mining, and agricultural techniques that could end food scarcity throughout the galaxy." "In exchange for?" Draven asked, his voice measured. "Freedom for humanity. Equal standing within your empire. A human homeworld with self-governance." Draven's laugh was harsh. The Emperor would never agree. "Humans are, no offense, Captain, yet your species is considered technologically primitive. Granting such concessions would encourage other subjugated species to demand similar treatment." "Perhaps," Wright acknowledged, "but consider the alternative. We've transmitted the specifications for our phase drive to 30 hidden human resistance cells throughout the Empire. If we don't return from this meeting, if our vessel is attacked, specifications go public." The implied threat hung in the air. You would destabilize an empire of 1 trillion citizens over the freedom of a few billion humans. Commander Phillips smiled thinly. "The freedom of any species is worth fighting for, Admiral. But we prefer peaceful transition." Draven's communication device chimed. He excused himself to a corner of the room, speaking quietly with Imperial command. When he returned, his expression was grim. "The Emperor has been apprised of the situation. He wishes to meet with your delegation personally." Wright's eyebrows rose. "That was quick." "Our Emperor recognizes potentially transformative moments in history," Draven said carefully. "And there's something you should know before you agree." He activated his own holographic display, showing a vast space station orbiting a gas giant. "This is Celestial Keep, the Emperor's mobile palace. What you can't see are the 3,000 warships surrounding it, or the planetary defense systems capable of destroying small moons. Intimidation, Admiral? Context, Captain. And there's one more thing." Draven hesitated. "Our Emperor is human." The revelation stunned the Prometheus crew into silence. "Impossible," Dr. Kingston finally whispered. "All records indicate the Imperial line is Arcovian." "A carefully maintained fiction," Draven explained. "Emperor Dominic ascended 3 decades ago through means that were unconventional. His identity remains one of the Empire's most closely guarded secrets." Wright exchanged glances with her officers before nodding slowly. "We accept the invitation, but our ship remains here under the protection of its defensive systems. We'll take your shuttle." As they prepared to depart, Dr. O'Kafer pulled the captain aside, speaking in hushed tones. Wright nodded, then addressed Draven once more. "Admiral, you speak of an Emperor Dominic. Would his full name happen to be Dominic Vega?" The question visibly shocked Draven. "How could you possibly know that?" Captain Wright's expression transformed into something Draven couldn't quite read, a mixture of recognition, shock, and something almost like amusement. "Because," she said quietly, "Dr. Dominic Vega was our mission director. He designed the Prometheus, and he was supposed to be on the ship with us." The Imperial shuttle cut through space toward the massive structure of Celestial Keep. From within, the scale of the Emperor's mobile palace became even more apparent. A sprawling construct larger than many cities, with spires and domes that gleamed against the backdrop of the gas giant it orbited. "How did a human become emperor?" Wright asked as they approached. "Your empire has never been known for its vertical mobility opportunities." Draven's 4-fingered hands tensed on the armrests of his seat. "That is a story only the emperor should tell. But understand this, he rules not through birthright, but through the combination of technological superiority, political acumen, and, when necessary, ruthless application of force." The shuttle docked within a cavernous hangar bay. Upon disembarking, the delegation was met by a phalanx of Imperial guards in ceremonial armor. An intimidating sight of mixed species, each standing over 2 meters tall. These precautions seem excessive for peaceful guests, Commander Phillips observed dryly. "The Emperor takes no chances with his security," Draven replied, "particularly when meeting individuals with technology beyond Imperial understanding." They were escorted through a series of increasingly opulent corridors. The architecture blended elements from dozens of worlds. Arcovian crystal archways led to chambers decorated with ancient Earth artworks, which opened into gardens containing flora from 100 different planets. Captain Wright noticed something unusual as they progressed deeper into the palace: an increasing presence of humans among the staff. Not as servants or laborers, but as advisors, technicians, and even security personnel. Their uniforms marked them as members of the Imperial household, Positions of privilege. Finally, they reached an antechamber outside the Imperial audience hall. A tall human woman in an elaborate uniform approached them. Admiral Draven, she acknowledged with a curt nod before turning to the Prometheus crew. I am Grand Marshal Takeda, my Emperor's right hand. You will be scanned before entering His Imperial Majesty's presence. The scan was thorough, but swift. When it completed, Takda's eyebrows rose slightly as she studied the results on her tablet. Interesting, she murmured. Captain Wright, your genetic structure shows signs of advanced modification. Not Imperial work. Wright nodded. A gift from our allies in the other galaxy. Extended lifespan, improved cellular regeneration, enhanced neural processing. The Emperor will be fascinated, Takeda said, almost to herself. Follow me. The Imperial audience hall defied expectations. Instead of the grandiose throne room they had anticipated, they entered what appeared to be an advanced scientific laboratory. Holographic displays filled the air with streams of data. Research equipment lined the walls, and at the center, bent over a workstation, stood a single human figure in simple attire. Your Majesty, Takeda announced, the delegation from the Prometheus. The man straightened and turned. He appeared to be in his early 40s, with olive skin and sharp features. His dark hair was streaked with premature silver at the temples, and his eyes held the wariness of someone who had seen too much. Captain Eleanor Wright, he said, his voice carrying the weight of command, despite its softness. After all these years, Wright stepped forward, studying the Emperor's face with growing recognition. You're not Dominic, but the resemblance is striking. The Emperor smiled slightly. Dominic Vega was my grandfather. I am Marcus Vega, though for official purposes I am Emperor Dominic IV of the Arcovian line, your grandfather. Wright's confusion was evident. But that's impossible. We left Earth only 67 years ago, our time. For you, perhaps. The Emperor gestured to a seating area nearby. For Earth, it's been over 3 centuries. Please, sit. We have much to discuss. As they settled into comfortable chairs, the Emperor dismissed everyone except Takeda, who took up a position behind him. My grandfather never boarded the Prometheus as planned, the Emperor began. A last-minute technical issue kept him on Earth. He watched your ship disappear into deep space, never to return. He spent the rest of his life monitoring for signals from your vessel, constructing more powerful telescopes and receivers. The Emperor's eyes grew distant with the telling. When the Arcovian ships arrived 32 years later, he was ready. He had prepared contingencies, hidden resources. While Earth governments collapsed in the face of superior technology, my grandfather's secret organization endured. They preserved human knowledge, culture, and most importantly, scientific advancement. A resistance movement, Commander Phillips surmised. For generations, the Emperor confirmed, my father led it after my grandfather, and I after my father. We infiltrated every level of Imperial society, playing the role of the compliant, useful species. We became translators, assistants, consultants, overlooked but ever present. Captain Wright leaned forward. And then you somehow became Emperor. For the first time, true emotion cracked through the Emperor's composed facade. A flash of old pain. The previous Emperor, that was I, developed an obsession with ancient human scientific theories. He believed humans had once possessed insights that had been lost. He made me his scientific advisor. The Emperor rose, pacing slowly. What he didn't know was that those insights hadn't been lost. They'd been hidden. When he discovered I'd been withholding information, he used the execution of 10,000 humans as punishment. His voice hardened. I had no choice. I used technology my grandfather developed, based on theoretical work he'd done for the Prometheus mission, to override the Imperial security systems. The coup was bloody but successful, and to maintain the fiction of being Arcovian to stabilize the Empire, Wright concluded. Precisely. If the trillion citizens of the Empire knew they were being ruled by a member of a servant species, chaos would ensue. Dr. Okafer, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. You've been waiting for us. The Emperor's gaze snapped to her. What? Your grandfather knew about the wormhole possibility. It was in his theoretical models, the ones too dangerous to share with the rest of the mission team. He knew we might encounter one, might survive it, and he would have prepared for our potential return. A slow smile spread across the Emperor's face. Very perceptive, Doctor. Yes, my family has maintained observation posts at every logical return point for centuries. When your ship appeared, I was notified immediately. Captain Wright stood, approaching the Emperor. Despite the guards tensing, she extended her hand. Then perhaps this meeting was inevitable, Your Majesty. The Emperor took her hand. Perhaps it was, Captain. Now, tell me about these allies you found, and the technology they gave you. Because I believe we have a unique opportunity before us to reshape not just humanity's future, but the future of the entire galaxy. 3 days later, the Prometheus drifted in high orbit above Earth, a planet many of its crew had never expected to see again. Captain Wright stood at the observation deck, gazing down at the blue-green world that had once been humanity's only home. It looks so peaceful from up here, Dr. Kingston said, joining her at the viewport. Hard to believe what's happening on the surface. What was happening was nothing short of revolutionary. The Emperor had moved with stunning speed after their meeting. Within hours, he had assembled his most trusted advisors and military leaders, many of them secretly human, and laid out a plan that had clearly been decades in the making. The first phase had begun with a galaxy-wide transmission from the Emperor himself, revealing his true identity and announcing the elevation of humanity to full citizenship status within the Empire. The second phase, now underway, was the systematic dismantling of human labor camps and service contracts across all Imperial worlds. The resistance cells are emerging everywhere, Commander Phillips reported, entering with a datapad. Just as the Emperor predicted. 67 worlds have already established provisional human governments under Imperial oversight. And the backlash? Wright asked. Surprisingly limited. 3 minor Arcovian noble houses attempted to cope, but Imperial forces, significantly bolstered by previously hidden human military units, put it down within hours. The door slid open again, admitting Dr. HFY and an Imperial science officer, a tall, insectoid Cellin that Wright had learned was one of the Emperor's most trusted researchers. Captain, Dr. HFY said, her eyes bright with excitement, we've finished the initial compatibility analysis. The phase drive technology can be adapted to Imperial vessels with only minor modifications to their existing systems. The Xellan scientists chittered in agreement. The applications extend far beyond propulsion. The spatial manipulation principles could revolutionize everything from medicine to agriculture to planetary defense. Wright nodded, but her expression remained troubled. And yet, I can't help feeling we're moving too fast. The Emperor is dismantling 3 centuries of Imperial structure in a matter of days. He's been preparing for this moment his entire life, Phillips reminded her. And we provided the perfect catalyst, returning human heroes with advanced technology, validating his claim that humanity deserves equal standing. A soft alert tone sounded throughout the ship. Captain Wright to the communication center, a voice announced. Priority transmission from Celestial Keep. In the communications center, the Emperor's image materialized on the main screen. He looked tired, but energized, a man fulfilling his life's purpose. Captain, I trust you've been following developments. We have, Your Majesty. The pace is breathtaking. Necessity dictates urgency, he replied. The momentum of this transition is our greatest protection against organized resistance. But I haven't contacted you to discuss politics. He leaned closer to the camera. My scientists have analyzed the data your Dr. HFY provided about the wormhole that transported the Prometheus. We believe we've located another similar phenomenon at the edge of Imperial space. Wright felt her pulse quicken. Another wormhole? Potentially. More importantly, we've detected unusual energy signatures near it, consistent with the propulsion system used by your benefactors and the other galaxy. The implications were staggering. You think they've followed us here? Or perhaps they were always here, watching and waiting. The Emperor's expression grew solemn. Captain, I'm mobilizing a diplomatic expedition. I want the Prometheus to lead it. Wright exchanged glances with her officers. With respect, Your Majesty, my crew has only just returned home after decades away. I understand. But you are the only humans who have had contact with these beings. Your presence would be invaluable. He paused. Of course, participation would be entirely voluntary. Any crew member who wishes to remain on Earth may do so with full honors. After the Emperor's transmission ended, Wright gathered her senior staff in the conference room. The discussion was lengthy and at times heated, but in the end, the decision was unanimous. 3 days later, the Prometheus led a small fleet of Imperial vessels toward the coordinates provided by the Emperor's scientists. As they approached the edge of charted space, their sensors detected unusual gravitational distortions. similar to what they had encountered 67 years earlier. Phase drive standing by, Commander Phillips reported from his station. All vessels in formation, the communications officer added. Imperial flagship signals are ready to proceed on your order. Captain Wright settled into her command chair, a mix of trepidation and exhilaration coursing through her. Signal the fleet. Phase drives activate on my mark. She took a deep breath. 3, 2, 1, mark. The stars streaked and twisted around them as the phase drives engaged. Space itself seemed to fold, compressing vast distances into mere moments. When the distortion cleared, they found themselves in an unfamiliar region of space. And they were not alone. Ahead of them floated a vast structure unlike anything built by Imperial hands. A gleaming, seemingly impossibly constructed lattice of material that appeared to shift between states of matter. And surrounding it, dozens of vessels similar in design to the Prometheus, but of varying sizes and configurations. The communication system activated automatically. Captain Elena Wright, came a melodious, multi-layered voice that brought instant recognition to the Prometheus crew. We have been expecting you. Welcome back to those who journeyed far, and greetings to those who journey for the first time. On the main view screen, a figure appeared, humanoid but clearly not human, with iridescent skin and eyes that contained what looked like galaxies within them. Ambassador Avilia, Wright responded, her voice thick with emotion. We've brought friends. The alien entity smiled. So we see, the time of isolation is ending, just as was foretold. Humanity has awakened to its potential, and the convergence may finally begin. The convergence. Emperor Marcus Vega leaned forward in his chair aboard the Imperial flagship Dominion. The secure channel between his vessel and the Prometheus transmitted the image of Ambassador Thalia with remarkable clarity, though occasional ripples of distortion passed through the alien's form, as if their very existence didn't quite align with conventional physics. A joining of civilizations, Thalia explained, their voice creating subtle harmonics that seemed to resonate with something deep in the human psyche. A galactic community that has existed for billions of your years, spanning multiple dimensions and realities. Captain Wright, linked into the same communication channel, looked troubled. You ever mentioned this during our time in your galaxy, Ambassador? You are not ready. Your species required preparation. Thalia's expression conveyed something like compassion. The trauma of discovering that you are but one small piece in an infinitely larger puzzle has destroyed countless promising civilizations. The Emperor's scientific advisor, a brilliant Stellan physicist, chittered softly before speaking. You sent the Prometheus back as a catalyst. Precisely, Thalia acknowledged. We recognize the unique potential in humanity, adaptability, creativity, tenacity. But your development was being artificially constrained by the Imperial occupation. Captain Wright's crew provided the perfect instrument for change. The Emperor's expression remained carefully neutral. You've been manipulating events in our galaxy. Guiding, not manipulating, Thalia corrected gently. Had we wished to control your development, we could have simply provided the Prometheus with weapons capable of destroying your empire. Instead, we returned them with knowledge and technology that would create opportunity for peaceful transformation. An uncomfortable silence followed as the implications settled over the gathered leaders. What exactly is this convergence you speak of? Wright finally asked. Ambassador Thalia gestured with an elegant hand, and the view screen expanded to show an incomprehensibly vast network of interconnected points of light, some bright as stars, others barely visible. Each light represents a civilization that has joined the convergence. Some physically, others through technological means, still others through what you might term consciousness transfer. The convergence is both a community and a state of being, a collective that preserves individual identity while enabling transcendent cooperation. Dr. O'Kafer, who had been silently analyzing the display, suddenly inhaled sharply. The network. It's not just spanning space. Those connections are crossing dimensional boundaries. Your perception is exceptional, Doctor. Thalia said with approval. The convergence exists across multiple planes of reality. What you perceive as wormholes are actually intersection points between dimensions, natural phenomena that we have learned to stabilize and navigate. The Emperor studied the display with intense focus. And you believe humanity and the Empire are ready to join this convergence? Not immediately, no. Ambassador Thalia's form shifted slightly, becoming more solid, more present. But you stand at a crossroads. The elevation of humanity within your empire represents a crucial first step toward the type of unified diversity required for Convergence membership. So what happens now? Wright asked. Now, Thalia said, we formally establish contact. We offer knowledge exchange, technological cooperation, cultural understanding. The Convergence does not rush assimilation. Some species require centuries of preparation before they are ready to fully join. The Emperor's eyes narrowed slightly, and those who choose not to join. For the first time, a hint of something darker passed across Thalia's features. All are free to chart their own course. However, isolation becomes increasingly difficult as neighboring civilizations advance. The universe naturally tends toward connections, separation. Over the next several days, a temporary diplomatic outpost was established in neutral space between the Imperial fleet and the Convergence vessels. Teams of scientists, diplomats, and cultural specialists from both sides began the monumental task of building bridges between fundamentally different understandings of reality. Captain Wright found herself in a unique position, trusted by both the Emperor and the Convergence representatives. Her crew, who had lived among the advanced beings for decades, served as interpreters not just of language but of conceptual frameworks that often defied Imperial understanding. On the seventh day of negotiations, Wright was summoned to a private meeting with the Emperor. She found him alone in his quarters aboard the Dominion, standing before a viewport that faced toward distant Earth, invisible at this range but ever present in his thoughts. My analysts are concerned, he said without preamble. The technology the Convergence has offered in these preliminary exchanges, it would transform our society beyond recognition in a single generation. Wright nodded slowly. That's their intention, I believe, not to destroy what exists, but to accelerate your natural development. And yet, acceleration can be as destructive as deceleration. Societies need time to adapt, to integrate new paradigms. What are you suggesting, Your Majesty? The Emperor turned to face her. I'm suggesting we proceed carefully. Accept knowledge rather than completed technology. Learn principles rather than receive devices. Build our own path to advancement rather than follow a predetermined road. You fear dependency, Wright realized. I fear the loss of what makes us, human and non-human alike, unique. The Arcovians conquered Earth, yes, but they didn't erase human culture, not entirely. We preserved our stories, our music, our art. We kept our identity, even as we served. He placed a hand on the cool viewport. I look at this Convergence, this vast network of connected civilizations, and I wonder, what have they sacrificed to achieve such unity? What diversity has been lost? Wright considered his words carefully. During our time with them, we never felt pressured to abandon our humanity. They celebrated our differences, studied our literature, our history. True, Wright acknowledged, but perhaps that's because they recognized something we couldn't see ourselves, that the Empire needed transformation and humanity needed liberation for both to reach their full potential. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Captain, I'd like you to continue serving as our primary liaison with the Convergence. Your unique perspective, part of humanity's past and part of its possible future, may be our greatest asset in navigating what lies ahead. Wright straightened. I accept, Your Majesty. As she turned to leave, the Emperor added one more thing, Captain. Ambassador Thalia mentioned that the time of isolation is ending as was foretold. I find that phrasing curious. Wright paused at the doorway. As do I, Your Majesty. As do I. Unknown to either of them at that precise moment aboard the Convergence mothership, Ambassador Thalia was engaged in communication with entities far beyond the understanding of any Imperial scientist. Their form had discarded its humanoid appearance, expanding into a crystalline structure that pulsed with multidimensional energy. The pattern unfolds as predicted. Thalia communicated in concepts rather than words. The human variable introduces precisely the catalyst required. A response came out in language, but in a shifting of probabilities, a realignment of quantum fields. Yes, Thalia acknowledged. They remain unaware of their true significance. The great work continues. 1 year later, Earth's night sky blazed with unfamiliar lights. Not stars, but a vast array of ships and stations, a combined fleet of Imperial and Convergence vessels establishing what had become known as the Nexus Point, humanity's first permanent gateway to the wider multiverse. In the Emperor's Palace in New Geneva, once the headquarters of the human resistance, now the ceremonial seat of Earth's government within the reformed empire, Captain Elena Wright stood before a gathering of the most influential beings from 3 different realities. The phase integration project is proceeding ahead of schedule. she reported, her voice carrying easily through the domed chamber. 37 Imperial worlds have now established stable connections to the Convergence Network, with another 53 in the preparation phase. Emperor Marcus Vega nodded approvingly. He had changed over the past year, his formerly guarded demeanor replaced by a cautious optimism. Beside him sat Ambassador Thilia, whose physical form had stabilized into something more consistently humanoid out of respect for their hosts, though subtle shifts in color and texture still rippled across their skin. And the social integration? The Emperor asked. Wright gestured to Dr. Kingston, who stepped forward with a report. Cultural exchange programs have been overwhelmingly positive. Over 2 million Imperial citizens have participated in virtual immersion experiences with convergent societies. Educational curriculum updates are being implemented across all Imperial learning institutions. Commander Phillips, now Admiral Phillips of the newly formed Joint Exploratory Fleet, added, military cooperation continues to evolve. Convergent security protocols have been adapted for Imperial defense systems. The Joint Fleet exercises in the Arcturus sector demonstrated unprecedented levels of coordination. As the reports continued, Wright found herself reflecting on the astonishing pace of change. The Empire, a structure that had seemed immovable for centuries, had transformed more in 1 year than in the previous 300. Species that had once been bitter enemies now collaborated on projects of stunning ambition and scope. The phase drive technology had revolutionized transportation, while convergence medical advances had already extended the average lifespan across all Imperial worlds by decades. Yet beneath the surface of this remarkable progress, questions lingered. When the formal portion of the meeting concluded, Wright found herself alone with Ambassador Thilia in one of the palace's meditation gardens, a tranquil space designed with elements from a dozen worlds. Your troubled captain, Thilia observed, their voice carrying that familiar harmonic quality that seemed to bypass the years and resonate directly within the mind. Not troubled, Wright clarified. Curious. There's something we've never discussed, Ambassador. Something that's been bothering me since our return. I believe I know what you wish to ask. Thilia's form shifted slightly, refracting the garden's light in hypnotic patterns. You wonder why of all the ships that might have encountered our wormhole, it was the Prometheus, a vessel designed by the grandfather of the man who would become emperor. Wright nodded. The statistical improbability is significant. Indeed, Thilia moved toward a reflecting pool at the garden center, the reflection fragmenting into countless variations across its surface. Captain, what do you understand about the nature of time? That it's linear, unidirectional, a useful approximation for day-to-day existence, but fundamentally incomplete. Thilia gestured, and the water in the pool began to move in complex patterns, forming shapes Wright couldn't quite comprehend. For advanced civilizations within the convergence, time is understood as a malleable dimension, not something that can be traversed at will, but something that can be gently influenced. Wright felt a chill despite the garden's warmth. You're saying you knew. Before we ever launched, you knew the Prometheus would encounter the wormhole. Not precisely. We observed possibilities, probability waves extending across multiple timelines. We identified nexus points where minimal intervention could yield optimal outcomes. Thilia's eyes met Wright's. Dominic Vega's theoretical work on phase drive technology was not entirely his own. Certain inspirations were provided by you, by entities within the convergence whose existence spans what you would perceive as past, present, and future simultaneously. They recognized patterns, mathematical elegance, in the development of your species that suggested unique potential. Wright struggled to process the implications. So everything, our mission, the wormhole encounter, our return, the human emperor. It was all influenced, not controlled. Thilia corrected gently. The pattern existed naturally. We merely clarified it, removed obstacles. Humanity and the Empire both arrived at this juncture through their own choices. And the great work I overheard you mention last year, what is that exactly? For the first time, Thilia appeared genuinely surprised. Your perceptual abilities continue to impress, Captain. The ambassador seemed to consider carefully before continuing. The multiverse faces challenges beyond your current comprehension. Entropic accelerations, dimensional instabilities, threats from what you might term outside context problems. The great work is the Convergence's multi-eon project to ensure the continuation of all reality. And humanity plays a role in this, a crucial one. Thilia gestured to the garden around them. Of all the species we have encountered across countless realities, humans possess a unique combination of adaptability, creativity, and determination. You see impossible situations not as barriers but as puzzles to be solved. This perspective, this fundamentally optimistic approach to existence, is precisely what the Convergence requires as it faces its greatest challenges. Wright was silent for a long moment. Does the Emperor know this? He suspects. We will reveal more when the time is right. Tilly's form began to shift again, becoming less solid. Which brings me to why I requested this private conversation. The Convergence Council has approved the next phase of integration. We wish to establish the first human-led Nexus node, a command center for multiverse operations in this sector. They have requested you to lead it. Me? But I'm just a ship captain. You are far more than that, Captain Wright. You are a bridge between worlds, someone who understands both humanity's past and its potential future. Someone trusted by the Emperor, respected by the Convergence, and uniquely positioned to guide your species through its next evolutionary step. Before Wright could respond, her communication device chimed with an urgent alert. Captain Wright, please report to Imperial Command immediately. Anomalous readings detected at the Luna Nexus point. Wright exchanged a look with Thalia. Duty calls, Ambassador. We'll continue this discussion later. Indeed, we will, Captain, though perhaps sooner than you expect. At Imperial Command, Wright found controlled chaos. Holographic displays showed massive energy fluctuations around the Luna Nexus point, the primary gateway between Imperial space and the Convergence network. Report, she demanded as she entered. Admiral Phillips turned from the main display. The Nexus point is experiencing unprecedented energy surges, patterns unlike anything we've recorded before. Dr. Okafor was frantically analyzing incoming data. It's as if something massive is pushing through from the other side, something the gateway wasn't designed to accommodate. Convergence vessels, the Emperor asked, entering the command center with Ambassador Thalia close behind. Negative, Phillips responded. Configuration is unknown. Those words, the same ones that had announced the Prometheus arrival a year earlier, sent a chill through the room. Ambassador Thalia moved to a console, their fingers dancing across controls with impossible speed. Interesting. Most interesting. You know what this is? Wright asked. I suspect. Thalia turned to face them all. When you encountered our wormhole 67 years ago, Captain, you were not the only vessel to pass through. Another ship, an experimental vessel from your early space program, entered the anomaly decades before the Prometheus but was believed lost. The Emperor stepped forward. What are you saying? I'm saying that the first human vessel to encounter the Convergence has finally found its way home. On the main display, the energy distortions reached a crescendo. Space itself seemed to fold and unfurl like organ in the hands of a master. From within this dimensional manipulation emerged a ship, ancient by Imperial standards, barely more than a primitive capsule by Convergence measures. Yet it had been transformed. Its original structure remained recognizable, but it was now encased in a latticework of technology that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, solid where structural support was needed, fluid where flexibility was required, and something else entirely where conventional physics reached its limits. Magnify central section, the Emperor ordered. The image zoomed in to reveal faded lettering still visible beneath the technological enhancements. United States Space Agency, Pathfinder Initiative, 2011. Impossible, Wright whispered. That mission was lost before the Prometheus was even conceived. Not lost, Thalia corrected. Transformed. The crew of that vessel became the first humans to join the Convergence fully, not merely as allies but as integrated members. They have spent the equivalent of millennium in subjective time, evolving, learning, becoming something new. As they watched, the vessel established orbit around Earth. A transmission arrived, not through conventional channels, but seemingly manifesting directly within the command center's communications array. A figure appeared, humanoid in basic structure, but clearly no longer human in the conventional sense. Its form shifted between states of matter, occasionally revealing glimpses of intricate machinery beneath what might have been skin. People of Earth, Empire of the Stars, children of the Convergence. The voice was melodious yet ancient, carrying echoes of human speech patterns, but overlaid with something far more complex. We are the returned. The circle is now complete. Admiral Phillips looked to Wright, confusion evident on his face. Circle? What circle? But Captain Ellinger Wright understood. Perhaps she had always understood, on some level, since the moment the Prometheus had encountered that first wormhole, the circle of humanity's journey. She said softly, "We didn't just happen to encounter advanced aliens who decided to help us. We encountered ourselves, what humanity can become, what we will become." The Emperor stepped forward. "I am Emperor Marcus Vega. On behalf of Earth and the Empire, I welcome you home." The transformed human's expression shifted into something approximating a smile. "Home is a concept we have carried across dimensions, Emperor. And now we bring it full circle, the knowledge and capabilities that humanity will need for what lies ahead." "And what does lie ahead?" Wright asked. "Challenges, wonders, responsibilities on a scale you cannot yet comprehend." The being's form stabilized slightly. "But most importantly, a choice. The choice all species must eventually make, to remain as you are or to become what you might be." Ambassador Thalia moved to stand beside the holographic visitor. The Pathfinder crew has served as humanity's advanced team within the Convergence for centuries. They have prepared the way for Earth's integration, should you choose that path. The Emperor looked around the command center, at the humans and non-humans working side by side, at the displays showing Imperial worlds linked by technology that would have seemed magical just a year ago, at Captain Wright, who stood at the intersection of humanity's past and its possible future. "I believe," he said carefully, "that choice was made the moment the Prometheus returned to our space. We have already begun our journey." The transformed human nodded. "Then let us show you what awaits at the journey's end." Above Earth, the Pathfinder vessel began to glow with internal light. Energy cascaded from it in geometric patterns, forming a structure in orbit that expanded with breathtaking speed, a gateway larger and more complex than any nexus point established before. The central nexus, Ambassador Thalia explained, awe-evident even in their voice, a direct connection to the heart of the Convergence. Typically, only species with centuries of integration are granted such access. Through the command center's viewports, they could see the night sky transforming. Stars seemed to shift position, new constellations forming as the gateway provided a window into realms beyond conventional space-time. Captain Elena Wright felt a hand on her shoulder and turned to find Emperor Marcus Vega standing beside her. "My grandfather used to tell me stories," he said quietly, "about how humanity was meant for more than service, that someday we would take our place among the stars, not as conquerors or conquered, but as explorers, innovators. I never truly believed him until the Prometheus returned." Wright smiled. "And now?" "Now I understand that the Empire was never the end of humanity's story. It was merely a chapter." He straightened his shoulders. "The question is, are we ready for the next one?" Before Wright could answer, her communication device activated again, this time with a message that made her breath catch. "Captain," came Dr. O'Keefe's excited voice, "we're receiving transmissions through the central nexus from hundreds of different human colonies. Not Imperial colonies, independent human settlements throughout the multiverse. They're waiting to reconnect with Earth." The Emperor's eyes widened. "How is that possible?" Ambassador Thalia's form shifted into something more radiant, more revealing of their true nature. When the Pathfinder disappeared, its crew did not merely join the Convergence. They became explorers of realities where human development took different paths. They established outposts, shared knowledge, guided development. They have been preparing humanity across multiple dimensions for this moment. On the main display, a new figure appeared, clearly human, wearing a uniform reminiscent of the original Pathfinder mission, but evolved, advanced. "I am Admiral James Takahashi of the United Dimensions Fleet," the figure announced. "On behalf of humanity's multiversal presence, I extend greetings to Earth Prime and formally invite you to join the Human Concordance, a cooperative alliance of human civilizations spanning 17 distinct reality streams." Captain Wright felt something she hadn't experienced since the Prometheus first encountered the wormhole 67 years earlier. A profound sense of wonder mixed with the thrill of the unknown. "It seems," she said to no one in particular, "that humanity was never truly alone. We just hadn't found ourselves yet." As dawn broke over Earth, the impossible ship that had started everything, a primitive exploration vessel launched in humanity's first hesitant steps beyond their home planet, pulsed with energy that bathed the planet in gentle light. A signal to beacon, a promise of what was to come. In command centers and living rooms across the planet, humans looked up at their transformed sky and understood that the universe was both much larger and much smaller than they had ever imagined. That the distances between stars could be bridged, that the barriers between dimensions could be crossed, and that humanity's greatest adventure was only just beginning. Captain Eleanor Wright, standing at the threshold between past and future, spoke the words that would be recorded in history texts across multiple realities. We set out to find intelligent life among the stars. Instead, we found ourselves, what we were, what we are, and what we might become. The circle is complete. Now we begin the spiral. Far beyond perception, in realms where time itself was but one option among many entities that had guided this convergence, observed with satisfaction as the pattern they had nurtured across eons reached its next evolutionary phase. The human variable had proven its worth once again. Even the Imperials who had once sought to contain humanity's potential now found themselves elevated by association, partners in an expansion of consciousness and capability that would ripple across the multiverse. And it had all begun with an alert in an Imperial command center. The unidentified ship moving at impossible speed. No data matches found. That ship, the Prometheus, had carried humanity's past into its future. Now the Pathfinder had brought humanity's future back to its past. The circle was complete. The spiral had begun. The impossible ship that had started everything now stood as testament to humanity's greatest strength, not its technology or its tenacity, but its capacity for transformation. A primitive exploration vessel had become the key to unlocking the multiverse, just as the servo species had become the salvation of an empire. As the new dawn broke across Earth, Captain Eleanor Wright looked out at the transformed sky and smiled. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together, not just with itself, but with the countless variations of what it could become spread across the infinite canvas of existence. The Imperial scanners had been right all along. No data matches had been found because humanity had always been unprecedented, always been the outlier, always been the species that refused to be defined by limitations. Humanity had found its way home, only to discover that home was everywhere they chose to be.